Imagine this: Rachel Zegler, the star of Snow White 2025, defends her performance, claiming critics don't understand the powerful women in her film. But what if I told you that, despite her confidence, her portrayal has been criticized as disjointed and out of place in 7 test screenings? Even worse, Disney might be staring down its biggest box office flop yet. What went wrong behind the scenes? Let's break it down and reveal the shocking truth about this agenda-driven disaster. Now let's take a closer look at Snow White 2025. If you haven't noticed, this film is already shaping up to be far from what Disney hoped for. Many are calling it a Lord Farquaad prequel due to Rachel Zegler's distinctive hairstyle. The resemblance to the character from Shrek is striking, and once you notice it, it's hard to unsee. But who's responsible for this design choice? Was it director Mark Webb's idea? A decision from writer Greta Gerwig? Or did Zegler herself insist on this unique look? These questions only deepen the mystery of what's really going on behind the scenes. Beyond the hair, there's a bigger issue at play here, especially surrounding the controversy that's been brewing with Snow White 2025. Rachel Zegler, the lead actress, has been on the defensive for months now, engaging in heated rants about the critics who've already voiced their concerns about the film. These critics, according to Zegler, just don't get it. Especially when it comes to the role of women in this modern retelling of the classic story. It seems that this movie isn't just about Snow White anymore, but rather a statement about modern-day issues, something Zegler has been vocal about. For those of you who haven't been following the drama closely, let's break it down. The making of Snow White 2025 seems far more about pushing an agenda than staying true to the story we all know and love. At the heart of this project are Rachel Zegler and Greta Gerwig, 2 individuals who have not shied away from their activist stances. Gerwig, the filmmaker and writer, is known for infusing her work with social commentary, and with Snow White, that's exactly what we're seeing. The film has quickly become a lightning rod for controversy, and it's not just about the changes to the original source material, it's about how the film seems to be positioned as a platform for a political message. In fact, the most recent Snow White special look, or as some call it, the 3rd trailer, has been getting a massive amount of backlash. It's clear that this trailer has struck a nerve with many, and the criticisms aren't just about the story or the characters, but the overall direction of the film itself. People are questioning if this project is really about telling a compelling story, or if it's just a vehicle for delivering a certain agenda. The backlash surrounding Snow White 2025 is becoming harder to ignore, and for good reason. One of the primary criticisms focuses on Zegler's portrayal of the title character, which has been described as disjointed and out of place. Early test screenings were less than kind, with some audience members even going as far as to say that her performance seemed emotionally erratic. A perfect example of this can be seen in the Snow White special look, where within just a few seconds Zegler switches from being cheerful to visibly angry, only to snap back to happiness again, all within a span of 30 to 34 seconds. This erratic mood swing left many viewers feeling unsettled, further amplifying the feeling that Zegler's portrayal isn't working. Despite this backlash, Zegler has responded publicly, defending her performance and taking aim at her critics. Zegler responds by claiming that critics who don't like her work just don't understand women and the complexity of characters like Snow White. She argues that director Greta Gerwig and writer Mark Webb believed her musical talent made her the perfect fit for the role. They wanted someone who could convey a wide range of emotions such as anger, pride, and hope in order to highlight the strength and empowerment of Snow White as a modern, powerful woman. Zegler's remarks indicate that she feels her portrayal is an essential part of bringing a new, more relevant layer to the character. However, her comments have only served to escalate the tension. Zegler claims that families who fail to appreciate the depth of her performance are out of touch with society, stating that it reveals how disjointed our country is right now. Perhaps most controversially, she asserts that men have no place to criticize her work. These statements have alienated a portion of the audience, further fueling the backlash against her performance. Ziggler also speaks about the physical challenges of playing Snow White, mentioning the long hours spent in costume to help her fully immerse in the role, but what's most striking is how she redefines the entire story. According to Zegler, this Snow White is no longer just about a fairy tale princess, it's now a journey of saving society and allegory for real-world issues and conflicts. This shift in focus has raised concerns among critics. By turning Snow White into a vehicle for modern-day activism, the film risks sacrificing the magic and timeless charm that made the original story beloved. Ultimately, this reimagined Snow White is becoming more of a platform for political commentary than the whimsical, enchanting fairy tale it was meant to be. The shift in tone, coupled with Zegler's controversial defense of her performance, has left many questioning whether this new version of Snow White will ever capture the audience's heart the way the original fairy tale did. Rachel Zegler's recent statements have sparked even more debate, particularly when she defends the film's focus on modern, real-world issues. She dismisses critics who call the movie an agenda-driven project, claiming that the people questioning its relevance just don't understand the character of Snow White. According to Zegler, those critics, particularly toxic men and families, have no place criticizing a film before it even premieres. She suggests that the negative commentary is unwarranted, and in a bold prediction, she claims that these same critics will line up to watch the film out of sheer curiosity, regardless of their earlier statements. What's more, Zegler implies that despite the backlash, these critics will secretly watch the movie, even as they publicly condemn it. She seems to think that the very people who are most vocal in their disdain will still be intrigued enough to see how the film turns out. Her confidence in the film's eventual success is palpable, but this kind of rhetoric, where she dismisses her critics and even claims that families who disagree with her have no true understanding of the character, seems to be rubbing many the wrong way. In fact, it's this type of combative and dismissive attitude that has led to many people labeling her as one of the most insufferable actresses of 2024 and potentially 2025. The way Zegler frames the conversation that people will watch her movie in secret, or that critics are just curious to see if the film is good or bad, strikes many as arrogant. It comes across as though she believes she has an inevitable victory, despite the growing backlash. What's even more frustrating for many viewers is Zegler's refusal to acknowledge the core issue at hand. The focus isn't so much on the character of Snow White, but on the film's ideological underpinnings. For all her talk about playing a powerful woman and representing modern issues, it's becoming increasingly clear that Snow White 2025 is less about telling a traditional fairy tale and more about pushing a particular agenda. This isn't simply a reimagining of Snow White, it's a reflection of Disney's broader ideological shift. Zegler's defense of the movie often circles back to the idea that this film reflects Disney's values that include updating Snow White's story to address societal issues. This is where the clash between the traditional fanbase and the studio's creative direction is most evident. Rather than embracing the timeless, enchanting story that Snow White represents, the filmmakers are shifting the narrative to include more overtly political themes. Zegler reveals that both Greta Gerwig and Mark Webb were deeply involved in shaping this version of Snow White. She also had significant creative input, particularly in how the story would unfold. This isn't just a case of an actress doing her job, it's a collaboration in which Zegler actively helped influence the script and the overall direction of the movie. And that's where things get tricky for many fans who are already concerned that the film's narrative changes go too far from the original source material. It's no surprise that with this level of creative freedom, the end product has left audiences feeling skeptical. The combination of Zegler's vocal defense of the film, the ideological changes to the character of Snow White, and the shift in tone have led many to believe that this could be a colossal failure on a scale we've never seen before from Disney's live-action remakes. Even the test screenings, which reportedly went badly, confirmed these concerns. Early feedback points to a lack of emotional connection, with particular criticism of Zegler's singing, which many have described as flat and uninspiring. Ultimately, the failure to connect with the audience on such a fundamental level suggests that this Snow White remake may be a misstep for Disney, and a costly one at that. While Zegler continues to defend her role, insisting that she's bringing something unique to the character, many are left wondering whether Snow White 2025 can recover from the backlash and live up to the legacy of its predecessor. As the movie continues to make waves with its unusual direction, Zegler's performance transitions from odd to even more questionable, especially when looking at how it clashes with the acting sequences in the film. The entire project feels like it's caught in a whirlwind of conflicting decisions, especially since the filming wrapped back in 2021 to 2022, and it's been delayed multiple times since then. With each delay and change, the overall product seems more uncertain. Zegler herself insists that she poured everything into her performance, but fans and critics alike are skeptical about whether this effort will be enough to turn the tide. One of the most jarring claims Zegler makes is about the name change for Snow White. In this new version, the character survives a snowstorm, and Zegler defends this as a necessary change, even though it seems to throw away a key part of the traditional tale. Her frustration is clear when she dismisses any concerns about the source material changes with a casual so freaking what she claims that the updates are overdue, referencing the 1937 Brothers Grimm version as outdated and in need of a fresh approach. While she praises Greta Gerwig for taking on this challenge and even expresses hope that Gerwig will similarly succeed with Chronicles of Narnia, it's unclear whether fans will share her optimism after so much controversy surrounding Snow White. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, Ziggler and Disney are clearly banking on a major success. With multiple failed test screenings and negative fan reactions, this film is on track to become a colossal box office flop. Even Disney's core audience, the very people who might typically support this type of live-action remake, seem to be rejecting the film, with some even expressing frustration over the film's direction. This backlash is reminiscent of the one surrounding Star Wars: The Acolyte, which had a similarly harsh reception earlier this year. Looking at the social media reactions, it's clear that the public has serious reservations, and Disney might be facing a massive failure on its hands. In the midst of this, Zegler's own comments, especially her backtracking on previous statements and her increasingly desperate attempts to defend the film, only seem to fuel the backlash. It's evident that the pressure to save the movie has led to some disingenuous, if not downright absurd, remarks. It's hard not to wonder if Disney is truly aware of just how deep in trouble this project is, or if they're simply doubling down on their choices in the hope that it all somehow works out. But what do you think? Can Rachel Zegler's performance actually save Snow White? Or is the backlash too overwhelming to overcome? Are these changes to the source material really justified? Or are they a sign that Disney has lost touch with its audience? And as always, do you think this film has a chance at box office success, or is it doomed to fail? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.